Okay. Oh, I better go here to find out where I'm going to start. First, I want to introduce Hank Lyon.
Hello, Hank. Preach.
Hank and I have been best friends since 11th grade.
Oh my gosh.
And we, well, I better stick to and we've remained best friends for 68 years.
Through how many marriages?
None for Hank. When Ellen died, my first wife, we were living in a senior community just like this one. It was called Eschaton, and it was just outside of
Sacramento.
Sacramento, yeah.
Well, it's not just like this one because it was on the left coast.
Yes, it was. As a matter of fact.
I didn't buy it many times.
And it was called Eschaton. It was a lot like this, but not as nice. It was much smaller. We were in a not nice area, so we had wire fencing with barbed wire on top all around us. And we had armed guards at one gate.
Was that to keep people in or out?
Well, it was depending on what you were doing.
This was California after all.
So, Hank came out, when my wife died, Hank came out to be with me for support. And he was living in Simpsonville. And after we graduated, I'll go into that, but we both went in different directions. But we always remained friends. So when my wife died, Hank said, "Can I come out and be with you?" And I said, "I'd love it." So he came out, and he stayed for almost 2 years. I couldn't get rid of him. He really liked it, and I loved it. I mean, it was good. The reason we went was I was diagnosed with Alzheimer's 6 years ago, and when we got the diagnosis, my wife said, "We're moving to a assisted living place." And I said, "Honey, we have this beautiful home here." She says, "No, we're moving." So we did move into Eschaton, and it was nice. It had one downside. The monthly cost was $7,000.
Oh my
A month?
A month.
And when my wife was alive, with her insurance, my insurance, savings, we could handle it, barely. But when she died, I knew I was going to have to get out of there. So it just so happened that at that time, Hank's got a call and said, "You're going to be your great-grandfather." So he immediately flew back here and for the birth. Did you say you were for the birth? Yeah. And then he gives me a call and he says, "Larry, I just saw the most beautiful retirement home. You got to come see it." And I said, "No way. No, Hank, I ain't moving." He said, "Look, I'm sending you a round-trip first-class ticket. What are you going to do?" So I came out, stayed with him the first night where he was living, and the next day we came over here. and we saw the house that we're living in now and immediately bought it. So I went from being a Californian to a Southerner.
And one of the unique things about the house was they were afraid they could, the one you're in now, they thought they wouldn't be able to sell it because it has 2 master bedrooms.
Perfect. And it also had, we almost didn't do it. I almost didn't do it. Because all of a sudden, I hear this noise and I look up and there's this plane about 10 feet above me. and I said, this ain't gonna work. So the people we were talking to, he was head of the yeah. And he said, no, wait, they don't come in all the time, and you get used to it.
And they can't get any lower than that because there are the towers for the power line.
They crash. So all this, and I said, but it's really nice. And so we bought it, and we are really enjoying it. Okay, I was born to be in the military. On my dad's side, my great-great-grandfather was a general. And he was a general in the American Revolution. And I knew a lot about him. My family always talked about him, and I've got papers this thick. And on my mom's side, my great-great-grandfather was captain. Was he a captain? Yeah, he was a captain in the Navy, in the English Navy, and he was bringing troops over to fight in the Revolution, to fight my other great-great-grandfather. Now, something like that happening, it didn't happen for nothing. So at that point in time, I said, I think I might have a military career. This went to sleep. Oh, here we go. Let's see. My General Markle lived on, it's called the Markle Farm. And I used to go there all the time as a child. And they had cows and horses, and I loved it. But it was something to see and to be there. Well, did I say I was born on the witch's Sabbath?
No.
Another thing that makes me like, whoa. Yeah, I was born on Halloween, October 31st, 1938. And I grew up in East Orange, New Jersey. We had a beautiful Victorian home. And it was just my mom, dad, and my grandma and me. And this home was, one thing is that it's now on North Grove Street in East Orange. When it was built, or after it was built, the Revolutionary War hit and troops came in, English troops came in, and right above where the house is was a distillery. And they went in and just demolished everything. And all the booze flowed down the street. And the house out front of my home was called Whiskey Lane. and that's not, I'm not kidding about that. So when I was, I think I was 3 years old. It was one of the first things I ever remembered. But my mother and father and grandmother and I were in the living room listening to the radio. And the radio was this much taller than me. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting on a hassock, and my father, as usual, was messing around with the controls. And all of a sudden, something came on, and it was bombing. And that's how the war started. And I didn't, okay, we're at war and the bombings. And but what I liked was the game, not the game wardens, what are they?
Air raid.
Huh?
Air raid.
Air raid wardens would come around, and they'd want to make sure your lights were all out and your shades were pulled, and I thought that was really, really cool. So that was my first real wow. Let me get into my notes. I don't know why this thing keeps turning itself off. Maybe it's telling me to go. When I was very young, my grandmother was a retired school teacher, so she was teaching me, and she said to my mom, something is wrong with Larry. he's not catching on. So I guess they took me to a doctor, and I was diagnosed with dyslexia. So I was seeing things backwards and forwards when I couldn't get the alphabet straight. My mom was the most beautiful person I ever met. My father was a violent alcoholic and not the nicest person, probably the unnicest person I've ever met. And when I was that young, I didn't really know about him other than he was never around. I mean, he had a great job with the Prudential Insurance Company, and during the week he'd come home and late and go back to work. Well, when he got drunk, he was not a nice person. And the one night when I was in 5th grade, we had dinner, and my grandmother had died, so it was just my mother and father and I. And we had finished dinner, and he had been drinking a lot, so he was not in good shape, and we were being very careful. And all of a sudden, I know, I asked something about why am I, how come I'm an only child? Everybody I play with have brothers and sisters, and I'm an only child. And my mom looks at my father and says, "That's enough." And he said, "No, Larry, I want to tell you something." And with that, they got into a fight. And I guess who hit first? I guess it was my mother. When I asked why am I an only child, and he said, "You want to know why you're an only child?" And my mom said, "Edgar, that's enough." And it started getting to hitting, And my, let's see, he hit my mom, and she pushed him into the china closet, which topples.
Oh, no.
And a lot of this cut glass is from my mom's family, and that's all smashed. And then he hit her, and then she picked up a mail opener and went like that and got him in the shoulder and grabbed my hand and said, "Let's run." So we ran, and my aunt was a block and a half away from us, so we went to her house. And later, when we figured he's passed out and asleep in bed, we'd go back, and we go in the front door, and right at the front door are steps going up to the second floor. There's 3 floors in this house. It's gorgeous. And a little light that we flicked on. So Mom says, "Larry, why don't you go upstairs and get ready for bed?" And I start going up the stairs, and I'm 3 steps up, and the wall right next to my head explodes. And I look up, and there's my father at the top of the stairs with a .45 revolver pointed at me. And we got out. I went back to my aunt's house. Mom called the police. The police came and arrested him. And years and years later, I find out that the cop who arrested him was Hank's father.
Oh.
Talk about things like this. I mean, this doesn't happen in real life. So he was arrested. He swore he'd never take another drink again. He went through, what's the thing with the brain? Electric shock. Shock treatments. And my God, we would take him in, and he'd be just a nasty old man that he was, and he'd come out and he was like a baby. I mean, I was like, this is great. And I don't know if everyone's or anyone's seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Well, that was him. So he got well, I guess you could call it well, but he stopped drinking, and he was able to live with. When I was, I guess it was the same year after that happened. My best friend, next door neighbor, and I were playing out in the backyard, and we had 2 big garages, one 4-car and one 3-car, and in the middle was just a work area. And they were doing something in there so that there were a lot of bricks and stuff, and so John and I decided to build a castle, or no, it was a boat. We're going to have a boat. And so we built this outline of a boat with bricks. And in between the 2 buildings was this 18-foot step ladder that was for construction. So we decided we'd make that our mast. And at one point of our play day, John John says, why don't you go up and get the mast fixed and put a flag up? So we get this piece of paper, or maybe it was cloth. So we get up there. I get up there and I'm getting ready to do it, and John says, Larry, a storm's coming. And he goes, and off I go into the bricks.
Wow.
And I'm out. John immediately runs home. And the next thing happens is John's mother calls my mom and says, is something strange happened? John came back and he's something strange. How's Larry? And she says, oh, he's out in the backyard. I'll go check. Larry's unconscious in the backyard. And that was, needs to see my face. Thank you. These things, I guess they're good. I don't know. But I fell. I broke my left arm in 4 places. And they thought they were going to have to do surgery, but my mother convinced them to cast it. I was in a cast for 6 months. And in school, this is, in grammar school, this is a little embarrassing. And I finally got to the point where they could take the cast off. Well, after that amount of time, your arm just doesn't go like that. It stays in this position. So then I have to go and get, looking more stupid, I had to carry a pail of sand around at school. And to weigh it down, eventually it straightens out. But that period of time, when here comes Larry with his pail of sand, it was not what I expected. When I went to high school, and it was in high school that I met Hank, and we had my mom was also taught by my teacher, same high school or same school. So 4 of us became what we called ourselves the 4 Musketeers. And they were all of our best friends. And Fred has since passed on. Dick is now living across the road from the Outer Banks. I mean, talk about strange things happening. And then, of course, Hank, you know where he is. Yeah. So we were the 4 Musketeers, and we would love to blow New Jersey and go to New York. That was the thing to do. Mm-hmm. So we would always take off and go into the Big Apple. And there we had, I got to look at this, they had Coney Island, the largest wooden roller coaster in the world, which we loved. You'd like to go on that, didn't you? Yeah. They had Times Square, which was great. 1 year, I went to the ball falling on New Year's Eve. And the crowds getting out of there, pickpocketing, I mean, it was not the best place to go. We used to go to the Waldorf Astoria, Bronx Zoo, the Crystal Ballroom, where we would meet nice young ladies, and I loved and was a good dancer, so that helped. And of course, Tavern on the Green.
Yep.
I was the oldest one in the group of the 4 of us, And I was over 18, so I could drink. I couldn't, 21 in New Jersey. A lot of Jerseyers go over to New York to drink. And Statue of Liberty. And then graduation. Hank went to Newark College of Engineering. And with all my military background, great-grandfather and all that crap, I went to go to Pennsylvania Military College, PMC. So I went there and got these really nice uniforms, and you really feel like you're somebody. Well, once you get in, you're a plebe, and all the upperclassmen want to do is hassle you, and hassle us. They did. One example was that you'd be sleeping, and all of a sudden the alarms would go off out in the hall, and you'd jump out of bed. And my roommate was from Puerto Rico, and he spoke English beautifully, but he could pretend that he couldn't. So he was given orders. It was a "Я не знаю." Oh no, that's Russian. That's my next topic. So anyhow, the alarms go off at 3 a.m. and you get out of bed and you go out, and you're in your skivvies, and you stand at attention right next to your door, and there's the upperclassman. And somebody's not standing at the right attention, drop for 40. Down to your push-ups. Well, I was pretty good at all this stuff. So then they would say, you now have, we'll give you 10 minutes. You now have 10 minutes to go back into your room and come back in your full dress uniform. Well, the full dress uniform has 24 brass buttons that need to be buttoned to get the damn uniform on. And then you had all the other stuff. Well, I excelled at this, fortunately. My roommate didn't come out for another 10 minutes. And we just, I got out, I stood at attention, they inspected me, and they said, okay, Cadet Mills, you can go back to bed. Which I did, but I didn't sleep, because every 10 minutes, Pedro was having to go out without his uniform and come back and put it on, and it was not a whole lot of fun. But we did it. Let me see where we want to go from here. Oh, we had to eat square meals as freshmen. And for those that don't know what a square meal is, the tables in the mess hall had 6 people, 4 upperclassmen, 2 on each side, and then 2 plebes, 1 at that end and 1 at this end. And when we sat down, we had to sit at attention. So you had to sit looking straight ahead at attention. And you don't want to look at the guy at the other table because you're going to crack up. So you could move your eyes, but you couldn't move your head. Then when you got the command that you can eat now. And this is after they all ate. And there is food left. Then we got to eat, but we had to eat a square meal, you mentioned. So you would straight ahead, you can't move your head up or down or sideways, but you can look down. You would have to bring the food up to here and squarely bring it into your mouth and then go back down. Well, you don't need a hell of a lot when you only have like 10 minutes later before the bell goes off and you're out of there. So we always did that. It was quite an enjoyable time. The next 4 years were okay. They were good. Graduation, we had a famous speaker, I can't remember who he was, and we got our commissioned. We were commissioned and told to throw your hats up in the air, and it was over. We graduated. So after graduation, I had to go right into the Army. And so my girlfriend she was 8 when we first met, and I was 13. We were still best friends. And she and I got married, and we took off for Fort Benning, Georgia. Got to Fort Benning, and here we are. My God, we're officers all these years. We got our bars. And so we go to the first get-together out on the drill field, and we're all standing at attention. And the first thing happens is our trainers are all from the 101st Airborne. So they are good at what they do. And they were ordered to remove the class's bars. So they came around and we had to take our bars off. And you are not officers anymore. You are Mr. Mills. And that's how our training started. And the training, Fort Benning, Georgia, in the middle of the summer, is not a nice place to go have a good time. And we didn't have, we did not have a good time. I won't go into a lot of the things we had to do, but one of the things that was the escape and evasion course. And that's where they took us out 4 at a time, took us out, way out away from anything, up to a swamp area, and told us that they gave us one flashlight, one map, and we're all in everything, helmets and gun, M1s, and off, and we have to get from point A to point B before sunup. And if you didn't make it, you went in as a captured, and they would interrogate you. And we were told by others who had done it, don't get captured. So the truck pulls away, and we're ready to go. So the 4 of us are starting. We have our map, and they have the chart on it. So we start out, and we get, I don't know, maybe a quarter of a mile in, and I hear dogs barking. And the 101st had attack dogs that they had, but their rule was they are not allowed off leash. Well, the group that were very close to us disobeyed that order and let their dog loose. And of course the dog could hear us and smell us. And Fortunately, I'm a very fast runner. And we knew the dog was coming for us. And fortunately, I was ahead of the other three. And, other three. And one of the guys with our group of four, you couldn't see your hand in front of. Oh, it's pitch black. It's raining a little bit. There's no stars or moon or anything. Can't see your hand in front of your face. And all of a sudden, I hear behind me, and one of the guys ran straight into a tree.
Wow.
And that freed us, the three of us up. I mean, the dog immediately stopped and didn't ever attack or anything, but wouldn't let him move. So that dog was out of the. So the three of us took off. And for the next, 6 hours, I guess, we had to go to the end of this escape and evasion course. And those that didn't make it and went to their place where these 101st Airborne were, they had set up, dug holes, big holes in the ground, and give us information, and you gave your name, serial number, date of birth. That was it. And they would say, you're going to really get hurt or hassled if you don't. So one of the things they did, of course I was on my way, thank God, over to the end of this thing. But in this hole, they took the friend of mine that they did this to. They had him, his feet bound and his arms bound, and they put rope under him, and they lowered him into this big hole, and then came out with a very large snake and said, give us more than your name, rank, service number, and date of birth. And otherwise, this snake goes in the pit with you. And it's deadly poisonous. If it was me down there, I don't know what I would have done, and I'm okay with snakes. Now, if I could have identified it as just a black racer, I would have said, sure, drop him in, that type of attitude. But the guy that I talked to
didn't know.
He gave all the information. But that was, and then the rest of the training was really tough. It really was. But we finally made it out to graduation, and we were out on the parade grounds in formation, and the sergeants all came around with our bars and put our bars on us, and they said, you're now a lieutenant, and they saluted you, and we're all like, yeah, we're officers. The PA system up front goes off, and they said, Lieutenant Mills, please front and center. And I went, now what? So I'm looking around and nobody else. So I go out and do my center up to the general and all that. And he said, Lieutenant Mills, you earned the highest score of your entire unit. And we have this document for you, and this beautiful trophy, thank you. This Alzheimer's, I go to say a word, and it disappears. I mean, it's the most frustrating thing.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Was there a difference in the way you guys were treated and the other recruits who perhaps came right off the street?
Oh, yeah,
Didn't come
yeah.
from
We were all
military school?
lieutenants.
Yeah,
We were all brand new
so you
lieutenants.
got special treatment.
Yeah, and then all the sergeants and wanted to, the captains and lieutenants that were in the 101st, they were nice to us. But these sergeants, boy, they had our butts, and they were going to bust them as long as they could. But we got out. We graduated, and just after the graduation, I guess we were getting ready for our next assignment. Yeah, we were waiting for our next assignment. And I thought, I did so good on this training, and I got this commendation and this trophy. I think I'm going to apply for airborne. And airborne, the 101st Airborne was right there, and right where we were working were the big towers that go up that they take you up. And so I volunteered for it, and I was accepted.
Yeah.
So one good thing is I kept my bar on. So even though I'm training with enlisted, they still had to look at me as an officer, which didn't help much because the sergeants, we had to run 2 miles before breakfast every morning, and we had to do a lot of stuff. And training was a bear. But I went up on the drops with your chutes that you packed, and I guess we were pretty close to doing our first jump out of. And you think I'm going to go and I'm going to jump out of a perfectly good aircraft. But I was ready to do it. Well, I got called into the commandant's office, and he said, Lieutenant Mills, you got the highest score that I think I've ever seen in your language aptitude test. I failed French in college. And I said, oh, thank you, sir. And the colonel said, we're going to change your MOS from 9300 infantry officer to 9666 a counterintelligence officer. And I said, oh, that's, thank you, sir. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm going to get out of this jungle here at Fort Benning in the heat. So I said, what's my next assignment? And he said, well, you're going to go to Fort Holabird? Yeah, Fort Holabird in Baltimore, Maryland, which is the intelligence school. And you'll be there for, 2 months, I guess. So the family went up there, and I started intelligence training. I learned how to. Well, the name of the course was Defense Against Methods of Entry. In real life, it's lockpicking. So we were trained in that. We learned how to pick locks and how to, even combination locks. We learned how to put things down inside. And the next one was Defense Against Methods of Entry. What was the first I just said? Was lock picking, right? Yeah. defense against methods of entry was getting through burglar alarms. So they trained us in that. We had training of escape and evasion, it wasn't escape and evasion. It was what was it?
What year is this, Larry?
58.
After Korea.
Huh?
Right after Korea, then.
And before, no, wait a
Before
minute.
Vietnam.
So, when did we? Well, no, we graduated in '62. Yeah, in '62. I'm sorry. 57 was high school. 62 was. It was in '62, and Vietnam was heating up. So I went to Army Language School in Monterey, California, and I was assigned the Russian language. 8 hours a day, 5.5 days a week. We could not speak English. And there were counterintelligence officers like myself. The CIA had several people, and the FBI had several. And these Russian ladies did not, but they weren't easy to you just mispronounce a word and they'd jump on you. So I went through that, and it was a year course. And then my program was I was to finish school. Then I would go to Washington, D.C. to American University. There I would take Russian literature and Russian history. And when I got done with that, my assignment would be the American Embassy in Moscow. And so you would go over as Assistant Secretary of Gardening or whatever, some title that they give you. And so that didn't bother me. So one Saturday after our half days of class, I went over to the officers' club to have a drink before I went home, and I was having a beer, and this captain sat down next to me, and we started talking, and he said, what language? I told him Russian, and he said, "Are you in the CIC, Counterintelligence Corps?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, so am I." He said, "Are you married?" I said, "Yes." I'm thinking, what's this guy coming to? "Do you have children?" "Yes." He said, "Larry, get out of where you're going. Don't go to Moscow with a family. I just got back." And he said, "If you want to go without your family," then I'd say, "Okay, but you're going to be doing stuff over there where you're executed if you get caught." So I'm hearing all this stuff going, and I said, "I'm not going to leave my kids for 4 years and my wife." So I went into the commandant's office at the language school and pled with them that I would like to resign from the school. So they sent us to, my next assignment was Fort Hood, Texas. So I went to Fort Hood, and Fort Hood wasn't any much better than Fort Benning as far as I was concerned. But I did my time at Fort Hood. But one of the exciting things was that while I was there, I'll say this one thing. No, I won't. I'll save that for if I ever do this again.
Part 2.
Yeah, part 2. Yeah, I'm going to talk to Amy about that because I'm telling you about my military career. Well, after that stopped, I had another career, which is as interesting as this career, this one I'm talking about. So anyhow, at Fort Benning, they had an operation going where they wanted to test how tanks do in sand.
Duh.
So we all get ready to go to the Mojave Desert. This is still summer. And talk about heat.
Hottest place on earth.
So we have to convoy out. All the tanks went on low cars on the freight trains, but we had to go in vehicles. So we went in a convoy, and you know, a convoy goes only as fast as the slowest vehicle. And it took us, I felt like it was years to get there. A lot of the GIs are out there in their Jeeps with no tops, with their helmets and hats off. I'm going to get a nice, and shirts off. I'm going to get a nice tan. We had a lot of second-degree burned people when we got there. But we played Army games, war games. We, it was A versus B, and my job, I'm a counterintelligence officer. You know, what the hell do? I don't drive a tank. But I had my own operation where I had to get information on what the enemy was doing. And the Mojave Desert is a big area. I mean, big. So I had to get a source for get information, someone who had lived there. So in Essex, California, had a very nice post office. And it was the post office, the gas station, the grocery store, you know, that type of thing. And I met the postmistress. And we talked, and I explained the situation, and I asked her if she would be a source for me. Well, while we're talking, my driver sees the lady I'm talking to, who has a beautiful daughter. And he is talking to her, and it's almost like they're falling in love. And so we became, the four of us. I mean, my driver couldn't be my friend because I'm a lieutenant and he's a private. But the other three of us became good friends. And instead of trying to learn where the enemy was and do that kind of stuff, she was taking us in the Jeep. She was born there, and she knew that whole desert. And one day she said, "Do you want to go to an abandoned gold mine?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I'd love to." So the four of us get in the Jeep, and off we go. I mean, across. Nothing. All you could see was sand. And we went up into the mountains. And we got to this gold mine. And went in, and I got newspapers from 1850. I mean, it was a real experience. But so we we did the. Oh, one other thing. There was he was a lieutenant colonel, and at Fort Benning, everyone hated him. What was his name? Patton. Was it Patton? Yeah.
George Patton.
Patton. So his father was General Patton. Well, this lieutenant colonel thought he was God.
Of course, he was the son of
And
God.
he didn't like me because I was secret. Well, it's my job. I'm a secret agent. One night, I was doing a security check, and I went into his office. And on his office was a secret document.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, uh-oh is right. And I immediately took a photograph of it and took the document and went to headquarters. And he came in the next morning and found out what happened. Oh no, he got called into the general's office. And he just denied that it was him. I don't know who put it there, who found it, and I wasn't identified by name. And I guess he got chewed out really, really, really bad. And here he's a lieutenant colonel, Patton. I mean, my God, he used to carry a .45 gold or
Pearl handle.
pearl handles, yeah, like his father, and he was just obnoxious, and even his troops didn't like him. So one night out on the operation, when I get called in to the commandant's office after I turn in this secret document, and I'm told, he said, Lieutenant, is that all you took from the office? Is the secret document that you turned in? And I said, yes, sir. And I said, why? And he said, well, Colonel Patton is claiming that the division's contingency fund was missing. That's hundreds of dollars. And I said, no, sir. I know nothing about the contingency. I don't know where it was. I saw the secret document, and that was it. So I don't know what happened at that time to Patton, but nothing happened to me. But when we're out on Desert Strike, Patton was in charge of one of the divisions, and he was losing badly. And apparently, tanks were not allowed to move after sundown. And apparently, in the middle of the night, he wanted to reposition his tanks. And one of his tanks ran over and killed 2 people. Well, I mean, it was a very sad thing, but I knew that Colonel Patton was going to get hung. And that didn't bother me in the least. I was all for it. But, see, I'm almost out of time. Any questions or comments while I'm looking to see if I have anything else that I can bore you in?
How well do the tanks get from one side of the sand to the other side of the sand?
Oh, yeah, thank you. That would come up. I get a phone call. I get a phone call and, Lieutenant, or was I a captain then? I may have been a captain. Anyhow, Captain, Lieutenant, report to these following coordinates. So my driver and I go out, and there is one of the tanks from Colonel Patton's unit sinking. And the desert had been taped by the engineer corps, and no vehicles could go on the other side of the tape. Well, this tank had gotten lost or delayed or something, and there was his group, and he's over here. So instead of going around, he went over the engineering tape, and his tank started to sink. And Larry gets a call to come out to this incident. So my driver takes me out, and I go over and I'm discussing what's going on. And they said, you have a full security clearance, and we have secret documents in that tank. And we've got to get them out. And I'm watching the operation, and I am watching the tank out there is connected to a tank retriever, which is just a real big tank. And the retriever is being slowly pulled in.
Oh, no.
Wow.
And the tank out there is slowly going down. And I said to the colonel, or no, not the colonel, I guess he was a major. I said, sir, I'm not going out there and to get your secret documents. And he started to say something, and I said, sir, first of all, I've never been in a tank.
Okay.
I wouldn't know where the hell the documents were if I were to go out there. And while we're talking, the tank is literally sinking. And I said, and also, sir, the secret documents that are out there are for this operation. They are not secret documents for the Army. And he said, yes, you're right. And I said, well, I said, sir, I'm sorry, but unless you can find another jerk to go out there, I think your secret documents are going to be underground here real soon. And I could tell you another 20 stories like that about Fort Benning.
Come back next month.
Huh?
Come back next month.
Yeah, I want to, because then I'm going to get into what I did after I got out of the Army. I can quickly say that I decided to get out, and or I decided, no, I didn't get out. No, I got reassigned. And my reassignment was to be a counterintelligence officer in Nuremberg, Germany, and to be responsible for the East German-Czech border, spying and catching spies. So if I can get Amy to let me do this again, we'll go into that part of my life.
Larry, spy catcher.
Any questions, comments? Thank you for coming and listening and laughing when it was funny and serious when it wasn't.